All right. Hi, and welcome to another edition of Danny Brown Talks Phoenix. I am your host, Danny Brown. And as always, our podcast is sponsored by my real estate team, Myriad Real Estate Group, where we focus on helping buyers and sellers here in Phoenix. So on this week's podcast, I am joined by Alison King, who is in charge of Modern Phoenix, which I am a huge fan of all things that you do. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and thank you for being on the show.
Sure. Thank you for having me. So I started Modern Phoenix in 2003. My husband and I were driving around town looking for the next place that we wanted to live, and ended up taking a lot of photography and documenting where the pockets were that we were really attracted to, and kind of kept it as a digital scrapbook for us to have a conversation about what type of lifestyle we wanted to live when we made our next move. And through that process, because I am a web coder and a publisher, and that's kind of how I naturally express myself, is through hypertext, I started to build this little website called Modern Phoenix, and started to put the photographs up so that when we were talking on message boards or something, we could just link to the page and say, hey, this is what we're talking about when we say Marlin Grove, or this is what we're talking about when we say Ralph Havers Town and Country. We started having conversations with people on the Dwell message boards, which aren't around anymore. A lot of these forums don't even exist anymore. But through networking on Dwell, we're able to meet more people here locally who said, let's meet up for coffee and I'll show you where other pockets are. And some of those people were in real estate, but others were in building and construction trades, or just people who had a lot of know-how about Phoenix. And through that process, we just rolled out a map and started highlighting neighborhoods. And like you would do any sort of research project, we have to know where the content is. Mm-hmm. So we mapped out as much as we could find, and then just started building more websites and, building more content. And at one point, I decided I wanted a forum of my own, because Dwell was great, but Dwell was an international conversation. And I thought that, what if we tried to have a local conversation? So I set up a message board, and people started to join. I mean, it was weird. People, when you Google Ralph Haver or modern architecture or Al Beadle or something, there weren't a lot of websites there to compete with that content. So people would get funneled right into my site. They joined the message boards, and we just started to chat with each other about our findings or our questions. And then one of the questions was, why don't we have a party? Why don't we have a little open house or a tour? So we did. And I had no idea what I was doing. I've never done an open house before. I'm not in real estate or tourism. It's totally not my game. But we managed to do it anyway. And we put it together and toured Ralph Havers' Windermere neighborhood. And that was 16 years ago. Wow. Yeah, and we had 100 people show up for the first time we did this.
That's fantastic. You found kind of this little niche.
Yeah, and that's been great, because then I've been able to grow that and stay in my lane. I found that's important over the years, is to not have creep in my mission.
Sure.
And right before the recession came, there was a lot of demand and curiosity about contemporary architecture, and there were a lot of competing developments who were wanting my attention and wanting me to come to their events or to cover them, as content-wise. But I very quickly learned that there was no way that I could keep up with that demand. And so if I just stayed in my lane, primarily residential and commercial real estate from 1945 to 1975, then that would kind of be manageable.
So that brings me to a good question. So for a lot of our audience who don't know who you are or what your website's about, when you say modern, a lot of people I think just immediately assume you're talking about brand new, like really sleek design, modern looking buildings. But what you're talking about is actually old stuff that's modern. Right. There
are two definitions of modern, and that is one of them is contemporary modern, and then the other definition is mid-century modern. And different cities in America had different periods where their mid-century modern really popped. For us, it was definitely post-war, 1945, and then things died down around 1972 to 1975. 75 is a really convenient place to cut it off. There were some kind of latecomers trailing modern, and then after that, everything had changed. So we really focus just on that mid-century modern period, and we're looking for clean lines and lots of glass and open space and often modest materials, economical materials. And then we have our stock of great architects who have contributed to the look of our city. And so, we've made an effort to really catalog as much of their work as we can.
And why do you feel that that's so important to do?
Well, I'm a historian, so it kind of comes naturally to think about that. It's funny. I got my bachelor's degree in art history.
Okay.
And, you wonder, what are you going to do with that for the rest of it? What are you going to do? Are you going to teach? You're going to work at a museum, And so what was really cool about this pursuit is it gave me something I could really sink my teeth into. And I never expected that I would end up doing architectural history, but it's really not all that different from design history or art history. It's just another art form.
Sure.
So I think I forgot the question. But
well, why is it important to kind of document the history and just...
Well, lest we forget, and lest we also, make the same mistakes as the past. But I think a big part of the benefit of preserving, these artifacts, these kind of the residue of human greatness, great humans made these things. And they made beautiful things. And these beautiful places make people feel beautiful feelings. Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to helping people live their best lives and to express themselves in a way that they're comfortable and to a certain degree that is sustainable as well, which is a huge part of it. The
Sure.
greatest building is one that's already built. And that's not my catchphrase. That's the preservation world has been saying that for years. So it's important that we not generate more waste than absolutely necessary. And when we kind of conserve the look of our city, it helps us have a collective identity. Arizona is very individualistic. Very individualistic.
Absolutely
okay,
is,
don't
yeah.
tread on me,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So if we as citizens can kind of agree to curate what we think is important to us in terms of the feel of a neighborhood or the look of a certain genre of architecture, I think it helps us think beyond ourselves and that we have a collective culture that we can be proud of and that can make our children feel like they're part of something, because our city is composed so much of people who relocated here.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a melting pot.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and it's a cross-section of America and internationally. But we have so many Chicagoans who live here and so many Californians who are escaping, natural disasters and
taxes.
And the market.
Yeah.
They're getting priced out of the market.
Yeah.
And they come here and they look at our architecture and it's like, oh, I can't afford that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Lots of Canadians.
Yes, absolutely. We get up for our tourism events. We get some Canadians. So I think it's important that we feel rooted. It helps us be better humans, and it helps us feel like we have something that we want to stand for.
Sure. So how, someone who's a historian like yourself and documents those different things, how do you feel about, kind of what's happening in, say, Arcadia and Arcadian Light, where you've got all these block-built homes from kind of the era that you're talking about being ripped down, and these big, the Raptor houses, basically.
Yeah.
One architect came through, made a design that everybody seemed to gravitate towards.
Created a demand.
Yeah, there's a huge demand for it, and it's just this copycat that, people can get their hands on a mid-century modern house. They just, the first reaction is to tear it down and put one of these things on it.
Yeah, it kind of breaks my heart.
Sure.
It makes me wonder why people buy architecture and not want to, why would you buy something you don't want? I guess you want the land is what you want.
Location.
Yeah, location, the view. In many cases, these homes are blocking the view from the person who lives across the street. You and I know, when you drive up and down Arcadia streets, the showstopper is sunset on Camelback Mountain, right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Beautiful. It's a light show. It's so relaxing, and it connects you to our city. And then some of these, new houses pop up, and what happens to the neighbors across the street? That's not what they paid for.
Yeah, they can't see it anymore.
Yeah. So what do I think?
I
think you know what I think.
I think I know what you think. Yeah. So then there's more than to Phoenix's neighborhoods and the mid-century modern than just the three residential architects that I'm familiar with, which are Ralph Haver, Al Beadle, and Schreiber. Those are the three big ones. Mm-hmm. Are there others that I'm kind of missing that would fall into that category, or are those just the edgiest?
Well, those are some that have the biggest inventory, for sure. I would add Blaine Drake to that list.
Okay.
Blaine Drake did do custom homes all over the valley, and actually, through my research, I amazingly found out that he tried to do a tract home development in North Scottsdale. I went and drove up and down the streets, and I could absolutely see evidence if that was what he was trying to do. I would count Fred Guyry in that. Even though Guyry didn't build a lot of homes, those that he did are spectacular, usually higher budget. He had a nice clientele because he was really connected. So he was able to do some really expressive residential architecture in that very earthy Japanese style that many people know from his own personal residence. And so that's just the good stuff because of the high quality. But then there's others like John Sing Tang, where we've got the inventory sheets. My friend John Jackmart has worked on Tang's work and also Joe Wong's work. And, it's just a matter of pinning them, and getting and showing where they are and showing how broad the reach was. So those are some that come off the top of my mind. I'm sure others will. I'll leave here and I'll be like, I should have mentioned somebody else. But yeah, and then there were the second generation that came after that. Ned Sawyer, for example, who was Al Beadle's protege, has a beautiful body of work. Jim Flynn as well comes to mind. And somebody just sent me a Jim Flynn. Actually, Greg from Velocity Group Real Estate sent me a link, and he said, you got to check this out. It was a 1970 home that Jim built for himself.
Wow.
And it's beautiful. Yeah.
That's very cool. So how does someone go about, I'm in real estate, so oftentimes when a realtor's inputting the listing and it's got builder name or architect, they just put unknown, and they kind of stop there. If somebody has an interest to try and figure out what type of home they're in, who the original designer is, what sort of resources are there for them to use?
Okay, that's a great question because they can come to our workshop.
Which is coming up soon.
Which is coming up
yeah.
on March 21st at the Modern Phoenix Marketplace and Expo. We do have a workshop called Research Your Mid-Century Modern Home, and it's an opportunity for you to sit down with my mentor, Donna Reiner and John Jackmart, and then we bring our entire library. Like I have an archive at home of vintage stuff. I call it my binders full of men, okay? I have binders full of men's work, and I bring it out for the day, and everybody gets to see all the stuff that I've collected over the last 16, 17 years. And then Donna shows them how to access public records and the same resources that she and I use when we're sleuthing. We're professional snoops. We get on there, we go to public records, we look in the phone book, we know how to go to Burton Bar Library. There's so many resources around to use. You just need to know where to find them. So she'll walk you through that, and then you're on your journey, and you get to go and do a chain of title search and see who originally had your home. And but I think one of the greatest resources we have here is Burton Bar Library. Is great. I spent a lot of my early years there just with a spreadsheet. Me and my spreadsheets, right? I had a spreadsheet of things I needed to find out, and then I would go and look it up and see if I could go find it.
Where's Burton Bar Library?
It's the Phoenix Central Library.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's the Central and McDowell.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's Will Bruder's library, the big one.
The big one. Right. So
they have a place called the Arizona Room there. That's what they have that they don't have at other libraries is the Arizona Room, which is their Arizona collection.
So what are some of the features of mid-century modern architecture that are just specific to Phoenix that might not be in like your Palm Springs and some other well-known mid-century cities?
Well, the number one thing that comes to mind is the use of concrete masonry unit, which is the CMU block, which was kind of really popped here in Phoenix in around 1955. You've probably heard of the brand name called Superlight, and Superlight was basically, they say they're the concrete block. They made Phoenix the concrete block capital of the world. Okay, that's their claim. I don't know if that's true or not, but they were producing tremendous volume, and because we were building so much of our mid-century stock is built out of the CMU. In fact, the city of Phoenix did a study on that, and it turned out that like 73% of the city within the Phoenix boundaries that was built in that mid-century era was made out of that block.
Wow.
So the material is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
The use of the breeze block, a lot of people point to that.
This little guy?
Yeah, only bigger.
Only bigger, yeah.
And they used to come jumbo-sized back then, too. They had really deep ones.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they were much deeper than what you can buy at the Brickyard today. And those were also made by Superlight. And what's kind of cool, each city had their own concrete plant. Down in Tucson it was San Xavier was the big plant, and then here it was Superlight, and elsewhere it was another block brand, because it's not practical to ship this block long distance. It should be just produced nearby and on site. So So we have our own little kind of regional block styles, and obviously I've chosen the one that is attracted to me, that I think kind of represents the grid of Phoenix.
It's also your logo, right?
It is. It is my logo, and I love it because when I'm driving up and down the streets, I see my logo everywhere.
Yeah.
and people notice too. People have always mentioned that to me. They said, "Oh, I thought of you the other day." I said, "It's no wonder. I planned it that way." And so, yeah, I just like having that the centerpiece, just to remind people of, the grid, because Phoenix is so gritty. And,
I like that.
yeah.
That's nice. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the mid-century commercial buildings. I know that you've run some campaigns to try and save some of the buildings from being taken down. So what are some of the buildings that are well known kind of in Phoenix, and again, why are they so important?
Well, let's talk about two to start. One would be the Phoenix Financial Center, right down the street from here, at Osborne and Central. And it's really dear to my heart by Wenceslas Sarmiento. And he did just beautiful work on those rotundas, and then the tower, and the idea of it being a total work of art. The landscaping and the fountains and the symmetry of the site and everything is so beautiful. And even down to the stained glass and the finishes on the walls and all the, finishes of the wood and things on the rotundas is quite impressive. And then kind of in satellite to that would be the other piece in town that he's mostly known for is the Super Salad building off of Black Canyon Freeway at Metro Center. And it's also has the swooping roof line, and it's round like the rotundas are. So I think of them kind of like cousins,
Absolutely, yeah.
And so many people know that Super Salad building because you can see it plainly from the freeway. We pass it every time you leave town.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was designed to stand out. He knew that you would be looking slightly elevated down onto that site. That used to be an old Western Savings Bank. And Western Savings was one of the banks that was competing for customer attention. And the banks like Valley National Bank and Arizona Bank were all trying to express themselves through architecture. So that bank ended up getting that little round with the swoopy thing at the top. It's hard to describe what it is, but you can see I'm making this motion.
Yeah. It's interesting that a lot of the cool buildings were banks at one time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like a lot of them. I mean, some of them have been repurposed and turned into Starbucks or, Federal Pizza, I think, is another one.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of a fan of those. Like you said, the greenest building is one that's already built. So them repurposing those buildings and kind of honoring the architecture that's there and bringing them back to life. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Upward Projects has a philosophy. When they buy new buildings, they often ask themselves, what can we do with this, rather than the other way around. They think they let the building kind of inspire them of what kind of concept they're going to bring into there. And part of the reason why I mentioned Super Salad as well is it is on the market.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is on the market. And it was originally supposed to be integrated into that light rail plan that was going to terminate there at Metro Center, but then it got kicked out of the plan.
Oh, no.
And nobody really wants to talk about it, but it's no longer in the plan anymore. So they put it on the market. Luckily, when they marketed it, in the marketing materials, they gave it a mid-century flair and a mid-century flavor so that they kind of tried to set the vibe that this was something worth celebrating. So if you want to open a restaurant inside that building, I'd be so happy.
Yeah.
We need some good investors to just come up with that idea.
Save it and salvage it and not turn it into something else. Yeah. Well, and you're super busy right now, so you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. So you've got your Modern Phoenix Week coming up, and that's the 13th through the 22nd, right?
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it kicks off. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how you got started with doing kind of a whole week centered around mid-century modern?
Okay. So, so we do 10 days of celebration of mid-century modernness in town. And it includes architecture tours, talks and lectures, slideshows, that kind of thing. Hands-on workshops as well, like the research workshops that I mentioned, but also crafts and, how-tos. We have a retro slideshow coming up, the comedy show by Charles Phoenix, whose name is just purely coincidental. But Charles is well known in the modernism world for celebrating Americana and what makes each city unique. And when he does his retro slideshows, he always incorporates things that are regionally familiar. So we look forward to seeing what new Arizona material he has. And Yeah, and it takes a village to really put this thing on. I have a volunteer corps on Sunday. I'm training 110 volunteers to help monitor the home tour. And they come back year after year. They love to do it. They do their 2 hours of service. They get to take the tour. They get to be in the inner circle. And just, I love them to death. They're so amazing.
That's so cool. It's amazing that you have that many volunteers.
Yeah, I have to turn them down. There's only so many slots, and there's only so many things that I can manage, too. Being the one at the top, I have to kind of, know where everybody is. So that's coming up. And in terms of how we got it to be so big, of course, it was baby steps. The first year we did it, when we toured Windmere, it was just the tour, and everybody brought a dish. It was like a potluck. I think I brought the Costco vegetable tray. It was just.
Did the neighbors know what you were doing, or did you just kind of show up to some random neighborhood? Like, who are all these freaks outside?
Well, they were a pretty close community. We had 5 homes that were on that little mini tour, so I think they, and it was only 100 of us. It wasn't like the herd that it is now. And so so after we did that first year, of course, on the message boards, people were like, "Oh, that was really fun. Let's do it again." So I regrouped and took a year to figure out what that might look like if we did it a second time. And then I decided, well, I'm a professor. I don't know if you guys know that, but in my daylight hours, I profess. I do design education. And so I decided I was going to integrate in my fellow professors. And so we got people to do little talks and to learn a little bit before they took the tour. And so then we scaled it up every year. And at some point, Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art, say that 10 times fast, SMOCA, which is why we call it SMOCA. SMOCA reached out to me at our second annual event, and SMOCA said, let's do this together. So that was really formative to have that really early partner with a building, to have a place, a home, to hold events and to then develop the marketplace and the expo in the same spirit that we still run it today. So a couple things have changed over the years. Sure. I'm now independent again, and I'm running the whole thing with my other institutional partners. But that's kind of really the key, is institutional partnerships, so that I can, 1 year I can lean on the Heard Museum, and another year, this year Park Central across the street is really stepping up. Yeah, they were really eager to have our programming come back.
Well, they're doing some pretty cool stuff with where they're at as well.
Yeah. And Katrina at ArtLink has been great. We started out 3 years ago to do some partnerships with, having a keynote speaker come and to do some kind of cross-programming between our 2 different audiences. Mm-hmm. And that worked out really well. So now that ArtLink is really well settled in over there, we're eager to use that space and have that beautiful covered little pavilion that they have there to have our expo. Can be outdoors. We can enjoy the beautiful things about Arizona, and if it rains, we'll still be okay. And to really use that facility, and it's a MidCentury mall. I don't know if you guys know that, but it's a MidCentury mall that's been transformed into a commercial kind of enterprise now, and a cultural enterprise. So that's how you scale up, is you get good people, you build good partnerships, you take good care of each other, right? So that you can work together again next year. I really like it when institutions take ownership of things, and I can just trust them to do a really good job. Yeah, to do a really good job. And I'm just so thankful for all my partners and all my sponsors.
That's great. That's awesome to have that group of people where you can kind of just give somebody a task and know that they're going to do it and they're going to do it right, so that you don't have to babysit. Right.
Yeah. Because sometimes when I hold Modern Phoenix Week, I'm still teaching school. This week I just crazy. This next week I have spring break off, but sometimes I don't. And I used to teach night school, so
that's got to be a lot to balance.
It is. It's a lot, but luckily this year I'll have spring break. Maybe I can, sit by the pool at the Valley Ho for a minute and enjoy it.
Very nice. Can you tell me a little bit about the home tour and what's that like? Is that similar to like the walking tours that you see in Willow and Coronado, or is yours a little bit different?
Ours is different. So Willow and Coronado are very tight-knit communities, and they have that bond that they have as being a historic neighborhood, and they also have their own kind of rules, how things work with their tours. My tour is a little different because every year I pick either a new neighborhood or a new theme, and I explore that neighborhood or theme. And so, for example, last year we did all Ralph Haver homes, but it was citywide, so that you would be driving way up north, up to your neighborhood, and then all the way down to, another down here at the core. And so to do that, I have to have the themes, right? I have to have some sort of thing that gels it together. And sometimes it's been like the West Side. I did one called Left of Central, where we would not tread right of Central. We could only go left of Central.
That's interesting.
We've done Sunny
The
Slope.
left gets no love.
Well, that was the idea.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there's really good stuff in there.
There is, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, Upper North Central on the West Side.
Yeah.
Our Upper West Side is beautiful, guys. You should go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 So this year's
100%.
tour will take you to the Upper West Side. And so I choose the theme, and this takes me years to do. I mean, really, I start planning about 2 years out, and I start identifying homes and seeing where the activity is and kind of keeping my eye on stuff. And then about come summertime, I start to do my outreach. And so that gives me 9 months lead time to then plan an actual tour. And it involves a lot of door knocking with strangers, which I've gotten pretty good at, you know.
That's basically going up, knocking on a door and asking if people want to have their home on a tour and have thousands of people walk through their house.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the tough sell sometimes.
Yeah.
So often the conversation starts off, you know, I'm Alison from Modern Phoenix. You ever heard of us? I hope. And if they have heard of us, they are usually like doors wide open.
Sure.
Come on in. If they haven't heard of us, then we get to have another really interesting conversation. 'Cause maybe they're new in town, you know, maybe they didn't know. Maybe their realtor didn't tell them.
Yeah.
You know, but thank goodness for all the realtors. You guys are amazing of spreading the word and sending people links and telling them to go Google it or whatever. What would we do without you?
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because sometimes I feel like a lot of people curse our names.
Well, I think, you know what? I think the realty community has done a really good job of trying to step up.
Yeah, there are quite a few, you know, realtors that I know of that specialize and really focus kind of on, and their missions align with yours. They really focus on that mid-century modern architecture, and they really like it, and try to be an expert in that field so that they can educate their clients on either what they're selling or what they're buying. So
it gives them an edge, and they love it. They use our event as continuing education. You know, because they're going to see things on our tour that they may never have seen before.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Like I said, my wife and I are going, and both her parents are going, and both my parents are going. So you've got 6 people right there, all going.
That's so cool. Well, so this year's theme is Emerald City. Okay, that's kind of its nickname. And the theme is really the Central Corridor. So it's about our access to water and the way that we use greenery in our lives. So we're going to see everything from the classic irrigated lawn, right, which is a big part of who we are here, is our use of irrigation, to indoor atriums or indoor sanctuaries that use greenery. And you're going to see just a little bit of everything. You know, it's not going to be one of our deserty tours. You know, I really love the desert modernism. I've really been pushing that the last few years, but this is not Cactus and Ocotillo tour year. This is going to be big Aleppo pines and big lawns and, you know, little oases in the desert.
Yeah, the Central Corridor is really kind of known for that. It doesn't feel like you're in the desert because you've got these giant lawns, really big pine trees, and so that'll be fun. Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword because in a way it's really cool, and in a way it's basic denial of our reality.
Right.
But it is because of the canals that we have the access to this water, and it's very water-wise to use the irrigation model.
Absolutely, and it's super cheap.
And it's super cheap. Oh, absolutely. And it shades our streets so that we don't get the heat island effect.
Yeah.
You know, so when you go on our tour, especially when you get up to the Upper West Side, you're going to notice the temperature is going to be substantially lower than it is going to be downtown.
Yeah.
You know, because of the shade.
Well, it's going to make for a great tour. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I hope you see something you've never seen before, or that you've always wanted to go inside but never had a chance.
Yeah, I'm sure that it'll be both. So, you know, with the height of mid-century modernism, I feel like it kind of really hit the pop culture scene kind of with Mad Men and how like their show looked and how cool their office looked. Do you see any sort of the popularity kind of dwindling now that Mad Men's over? And
now that the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel won all those awards.
Well, true, yeah.
You know, no, I don't see it going. It's not. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. It is now in the canon, as we say, the same way that we refer to Victorian architecture or craftsman. It has its niche. There's always going to be a market for it, I think.
Yeah, well, that's good because I love it, and I love all the furniture stores that have popped up that kind of support the house and the architecture style as well. And I think I mean, I think you should take credit for some of those the stores that have popped up in Phoenix, along 7th and the Melrose area. There's several very popular ones, and I think that really is a testament to the passion that you've had and getting the information out there and getting people excited about those houses and how to decorate them properly.
Yeah. Well, I think we have created a little bit of demand. I would say. I think we helped put ourselves on the national map, especially living in the shadow of Palm Springs is very hard.
Yes.
Okay. And so I think we've done a really good job of creating an own unique identity about desert modernism here. We share some aspects with Palm Springs, but we also have our own unique identity. And Tucson's been doing the same thing.
Sure.
Tucson's developing their Modernism Week is amazing. In fact, I think at the end of the day, I think they might have more events than we do.
Really?
But they just have a bigger staff.
Sure.
I mean, they've got a whole institution behind it, and
and that's separate from you.
Oh yeah, totally
Yeah.
separate.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of overlap though, because it's so easy to pop down there. So go to Tucson Modernism Week; it's awesome. And it's not competition. I mean, we're all just feeding off of each other.
Absolutely.
We learn from each other. And I present down there. I've presented down there twice. It generated an interest in me in Ralph Haver's architecture down there. So I spent a whole year researching Haver in Tucson. Presented it down there, and they were like, "What is this? Who's this guy? Never heard of him." So it's been fun.
Very cool. Well, are there any topics that we didn't touch on that you wanted to get out before we kind of wrap up?
Modern Phoenix Week is really interactive.
Mm-hmm.
We not only have these workshops and things that you can come to, it's great networking. You and I were talking about that before we started, about how important it is to build your social network. The full name of Modern Phoenix is the Modern Phoenix Neighborhood Network, and the idea is to get people to start to talk to each other, so
Sure.
we're not so isolated in our own little silos. And it's very interdisciplinary, too. When you come to our events, you're not going to meet just realtors. Not at all. It's other people of all sorts of disciplines, especially at the expo and marketplace. It's very interdisciplinary. We've got lots of furniture makers coming out that day.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
The stuff that you bring out is so rad.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think I've met another realtor there when I go to those events. I mean, I'm not looking for it. And so my point being is nobody's like spamming you to like help you buy or sell homes. They're there because they're passionate about
Totally.
the furniture, the art. One of my friends is actually going to be featured there, Aaron Stouffer with Post and Beam. Yeah. Makes really killer art of all these mid-century modern stuff. And it's just an awesome event.
Yeah.
And they're free to attend, right? For the most part?
So much of it is free. Sometimes it's free with RSVP because we just need to get a head count and make sure we've got enough chairs and that kind of thing. But with the interactive part of it is that we do have contests going on as well. There's still opportunities to win home tour tickets. The best way to win those tickets is to follow our sponsors, because our sponsors often give them away, usually starting around next week. You're going to start to see the Instagram contest pop up. And they usually do it on their stories, or you have to like or share or whatever. And you could get free home tour tickets. It's a thing. It still happens. And then we have 2 contests going on that are creativity related. We have a photography contest that's just straight up photography. Whoever Instagrams the best picture wins a huge super light block that I have hand painted with my son. And we give that as a trophy.
That's really neat.
Yeah, it's very coveted. People want to earn it.
Yeah.
If you just want to win it, you can come to the expo and get a door prize. But if you want to earn it, you have to take the best photo. And then all week long, we're giving these guys away, which are done by our sponsor, Mini Materials, who does small-scale miniature building materials. And he sends a big box of them to me every year, and we give them away at our events. So the only way to get one is to come to an event, and then you get to do something creative with it. And creative is a very broad definition. It could include music, or I had somebody make a little Snapchat thingy, like a TikTok thing.
Okay.
It could be a photograph, of course, but it could be a craft or some sort of vignette if you want to put it with figurines, because it pairs perfectly with Barbie, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's tiny.
So do something creative with it. It doesn't have to be a beautiful photograph. It just needs to be something creative. And then we will give you, the winner, a miniature shipping crate full of concrete breeze block.
I love it. That's awesome and super creative on your part to come up with such a really cool way to get people involved.
Yeah, people have a lot of fun with it, and you can just follow the hashtag ModFix, and they have to tag it right with mini materials and stuff like that. But generally, if you follow the ModFix hashtag, you'll see the content coming through, and it's happening all 10 days long. So you'll see it's, sometimes people make multiple attempts.
Sure.
Because why not? You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking time. I know that you're super busy because this is coming up really fast. So I appreciate you taking time out of your day to sit down and chat with me for a little bit, and I'm sure our audience appreciates it as well. So if people want to tune in and follow you on social media or see some of the events for the Modern Week, how do they find you?
So we are at modernphoenixweek.com, and that's just a microsite that kind of shows you everything that's going on, and all the RSVPs and all the ticketing information's there. That's part of the larger modernphoenix.net website. And then the best way to get in touch with me is really through Instagram. I'm on it every day.
Yeah, you're super active, and you post a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, I haven't been posting much lately.
Well, because you're so busy planning a really cool event.
I've been really busy, and I think I do a pretty good job on stories. I do stories because stories is like behind the scenes, right? And and I'll just whip out my camera and do a little story, or I'll regram other people's stuff on my stories to celebrate what they're doing. And I do, if there's a ticket giveaway or whatever, that's where you're going to find out about it. So the easiest way to get in touch with me is to DM me on Instagram, and it may take me a day to get back to you, but that's usually the fastest way because my email box is just clogged.
I'm sure it is.
It is, and there's a huge backlog on that. I will admit I'm not doing my inbox zero very well.
Yeah, well,
I was there.
I think we're all guilty of that.
Have you ever done that inbox zero?
No.
Okay, I did it.
It's hard.
Yeah, I did it about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then it's back where it was. So
I know some of the people on my team subscribe to Inbox Zero, and I just can't.
Yeah.
I just can't get there.
Oh.
It's hard.
Anyway, yeah.
Very
so that's
cool.
the best way. DM.
Well, we'll make sure to tag all of this in the show notes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate it, and we will see you guys next time.